The ship trembled with a low hum, like a giant heart beating in the dark of space. Lights flickered across the control room. Warning signals blinked red, but the most dangerous thing was not the machine. It was Zira. Shira stood near the control panel, her tall alien frame tense and shaking. Her eyes glowed with a strange yellow fire, and her claws dug into the metal surface. Then, without warning, she raised her arm and smashed the control panel with all her strength. Sparks exploded, lighting her sharp features in a burst of red and orange. The alarms grew louder. The human officer, Ethan, froze in shock. He had seen battles, he had faced enemies outside the ship, but nothing scared him more than this moment. His own colleague turning her fury on their only lifeline in the void. The others in the room went silent. No one dared to speak. No one dared to move. Ethan took a slow breath, his mind racing. Why? What set her off? The answer hit him like a heavy stone. It was his words. Just a simple line, spoken without thought. I only mentioned another female. Ethan whispered to himself, but that whisper was loud in his mind, echoing with fear. For him it was nothing. Just a story about someone he once knew back on Earth. But for Zira, it had meant something else. Something dangerous. The broken panel hissed with smoke. Without it, the ship's shields flickered weakly. They were drifting near a field of sharp asteroids. One wrong move, one system failure, and the ship could be torn apart. Yet Ethan's eyes were not on the blinking lights. They were locked on Zira. Her chest rose and fell as if every breath was a battle. Her people were strong, proud, and violent when insulted. Ethan knew that. But he hadn't insulted her, had he? He had only spoken about another woman. Why would that matter? The silence in the room grew heavy, pressing down on him. Finally, Ethan stepped forward, keeping his voice calm. Zira, he said slowly, we need that panel. The ship cannot fly blind. Her head snapped toward him. Her glowing eyes narrowed. Do not speak of her, she hissed. Her voice was sharp like glass breaking. Ethan felt the heat rise in his chest. Not from anger, but from confusion. Why is she acting like this? He wanted to ask, but the danger around them stopped him. He had to focus. Another alarm screamed. A red screen flashed. Shields at 43%. The crew shifted nervously. If the shields dropped any lower, even a small asteroid could punch through the hull. They needed repairs. They needed the control panel back online. But Zira stood in the way. Between the human officer and the broken system, Ethan reached for the toolkit. He had to move, had to fix it before they were destroyed. But when he took a step, Zira slammed her clawed hand down on the console, blocking his path.
Sparks danced across the floor. I said, she growled, do not speak of her again. The others in the room turned away. No one dared challenge her. This was not just anger. It was something deeper. A rule, a law, a tradition Ethan didn't
understand. His heart pounded. He realized the truth. This was not about the control panel. This was about him. His words had opened a wound he could not see. Listen, Ethan said, lowering his voice. I don't understand your customs, but this ship is dying. If we do not act, we all die. Is that what you want? Zira's eyes blazed brighter. She leaned close, her face inches from his. You speak of another female, she whispered, and you expect me to stay calm. Among my kind, that is betrayal. Among my kind, that is war. The word struck him like a shockwave. Betrayal? War? For a simple mention, Ethan wanted to argue. He wanted to tell her that humans didn't see it that way, that it was only a memory, not a bond. But deep inside, something told him to stay quiet. The ship jolted suddenly, throwing them against the walls. An asteroid had scraped the shields. Sparks rained down, and the air smelled of burning wires. The crew shouted in panic. Ethan grabbed the console to steady himself, staring at the shattered panel. They had only minutes before another strike. His mind raced. If I push her, she may attack me. If I stay silent, the ship may die. And then a thought formed, sharp and heavy. What if she wants it to die? The idea shook him. Was Zira so blinded by rage, by some alien tradition, that she would risk them all? He looked into her glowing eyes, searching for an answer. But all he found was fire and pain. The alarms screamed louder. The shields dropped to 29%. The ship would not survive another impact. Ethan's hands clenched into fists. He had to decide. Challenge her now, or watch everyone die in silence. Room seemed to hold its breath, waiting for his choice. And as the next asteroid loomed on the screen, Ethan finally spoke. His voice was steady, but inside he trembled. Then you'll have to kill me, Zira, because I'm fixing that panel. The ship drifted like a wounded animal through the endless dark. Sparks still hissed from the broken control panel. The shield. Alarms had grown quieter, not because the danger was gone, but because the system itself was failing. Beyond the window stretched a sight both beautiful and deadly. A collapsing star. It pulsed in waves of burning light, its surface tearing open like a deep wound in the universe. Fiery rivers spilled outward, dragging asteroids and debris into their violent dance. To fall too close would mean destruction. Inside the control room, silence pressed on the crew. No one dared to move too fast. The alien officer Zira stood like a statue, her glowing eyes fixed on the shattered console. Her claws were still stained with smoke and sparks. Ethan, the human officer, tried not to stare at her. His hands itched to grab his tools and repair the panel, but he could feel her tension filling the room. Every breath she took sounded like a warning. The captain's voice came through the comms, sharp and cold. Control room, why are the shields unstable? Ethan opened his mouth to answer, but Zira spoke first. Damage, we are managing it. Her voice was calm, almost too calm. Ethan could hear the lie under it. They weren't managing anything. They were drifting blind toward a star that was eating itself alive. Ethan's heart pounded. He knew the truth. The ship would not survive without immediate repairs, but to fix the console meant standing against Zira. She had already blocked him once. He took a step forward. We don't have time, let me work. Zira turned her head slowly, her glowing eyes cutting through him like blades. You think I will let you speak of betrayal and then touch the heart of this ship? The crew shifted nervously. Ethan saw fear in their faces, but also something else. Agreement. They all looked at Zira with respect, even obedience. She wasn't just another officer. To her people, she was something higher. Ethan swallowed hard. He didn't understand their customs, but he understood survival. He pointed at the star outside, its surface tearing open in bright rivers of fire. That wound will swallow us if we don't move. Zira's jaw tightened. Her claws dug into the metal again. For a long moment it seemed she might strike him, but instead she turned away and faced the window. You speak of what you do not understand, she said quietly. The ship shuddered. Warning lights screamed. Shields at 17%. Ethan felt a rush of panic. 17%, that was nothing. The next wave of debris could cut through them like knives through cloth. He clenched his fists. I can't let us die here. Without waiting for her permission, he grabbed the toolkit and dropped to the floor beside the broken panel. Sparks stung his hands, the metal hot under his fingers. The room froze. Zira turned sharply, her eyes blazing. But Ethan didn't stop. He tore open the wires, searching for the power relay. Ethan, one of the crew whispered, fear heavy in their voice. Stay back. Ethan muttered, his voice steady but his heart racing. I can fix this. Zira's claws scraped the floor as she stepped closer. If you touch what is not yours, you seal your death. Ethan didn't look up. Better my death than all of ours. The ship jolted violently. A blast of light from the collapsing star washed across the hull, sending shivers through the walls. Ethan's ears rang. For a moment, the lights went black. The only glow came from the star's fiery wound outside and Zira's burning eyes. When the systems flickered back, Ethan's hands moved faster. He pulled wires together, sparks burning his skin. His breath came hard and fast, but the numbers on the shield display crept upward. 20%, 22%, 25%. The crew gasped in relief, but Zira did not move. She stood above him, her chest rising and falling like she was holding back a storm. Finally, she spoke, her voice low and dangerous. "You shame me in front of them, you make me weak." Ethan looked up, sweat and smoke on his face. "No, I make you alive." For the first time, her expression broke. Not anger, not rage, something else flickered in her glowing eyes. Pain. Deep pain, like an old wound she could never heal. But before Ethan could speak again, the star roared. Its surface cracked wider, spilling another wave of blazing light. The ship rocked hard, throwing him against the wall. The shield numbers froze at 27%. Alarm screamed, critical failure detected. Ethan dragged himself to his feet, dizzy, blood on his lip. The console sparked again, shutting down completely. The ship drifted closer to the star's wound. Its light filled the control room, painting everything in fire. The heat, even from this distance, pressed against the hull like a giant's hand. The crew shouted in fear. One voice cried, "We're being pulled in!" Ethan grabbed the edge of the console, his eyes wide with horror. The star's gravity was pulling them closer. Shira stepped to the center of the room, her eyes locked on the fire outside. For a moment, she looked less like an officer and more like a warrior standing before death. Her voice was calm, almost resigned. "The star chooses who is strong enough to survive. Perhaps it will choose us." Ethan shook his head, his heart pounding. "No, I won't let a star decide. We fight or we burn." The crew turned to him, waiting, desperate. Zira turned too, her glowing eyes unreadable. For the first time, the choice was not hers. It was his, and Ethan knew the next step he took would either save them all or doom them forever. The ship drifted on the edge of death. The shields held at 27%, but every shudder of the hull reminded the crew how close they were to being torn apart. The collapsing star behind them pulsed like a wounded beast, throwing waves of fire that lit the control room in flashes of red and gold. Ethan sat in silence, his fingers still raw from sparks. He should have felt relief, but all he felt was the weight of Zira's burning eyes. She had not stopped staring at him since he touched the panel. To her, his actions were more than repair. They were defiance. When the captain's orders came, through the comms, stabilize the ship, find a safe path, no more mistakes, Ethan didn't answer. He didn't trust his voice. Instead, he kept his eyes on the navigation screen. Something there caught his attention. A faint signal. A locked archive file glowing in alien script. He frowned. "What's this?" he whispered. The crew pretended not to notice, but Ethan could see the fear in their eyes. They knew what it was. Something forbidden. Something not meant for humans. Ethan's curiosity burned hotter than fear. He reached for the console. The archive required a biocode, AI, genetic signature. He pressed his hand against the sensor. Red light flashed. Access denied. Unauthorized species. But the signal stayed, pulsing like a heartbeat. It was almost calling to him. That night, if night could be counted in endless space, Ethan slipped back into the control room alone. The ship floated quietly now, patched together, drifting further from the star. The crew rested. Even Zira had disappeared into her quarters. The archive still glowed. Ethan crouched beside the console and began his work. He was no hacker, but he was clever, and desperation sharpened his mind. Wires twisted under his hands. Sparks bit at his skin. He whispered to himself, steady and low, "Come on, just open." The console beeped. The red lock shifted to orange, then yellow. Ethan's heart thudded faster. He was close. Then, success. The screen flickered, and strange alien text filled the display. Ethan's breath caught. He tapped the translator. Words shifted into broken human English, just enough to understand. Forbidden knowledge, cross-species bonds, He froze. His stomach twisted. Cross-species bonds. Was this what Zira had meant when she spoke of betrayal? He scrolled further. Among the Cathari people, mention of another female during service is equal to a binding vow. To speak of two is to split loyalty. Split loyalty is war. Ethan's throat went dry. His careless words, just a story about someone from Earth, had been more than casual talk. To Zira, it had been treachery. He scrolled again, eyes wide. Another line glowed brighter, pulsing like fire. Should a human bond be declared, it is irreversible. Breaking the bond is punishable by exile or death. Ethan leaned back, his heart hammering. So that's it. That's why she smashed the panel. That's why she called it betrayal. He hadn't insulted her. He had bound himself to her without even knowing. The screen flickered again. A warning appeared. Unauthorized access detected. Security alert sent. His blood turned cold. He pulled away, but it was too late. Behind him, the door hissed open. The sound of claws clicking against metal filled the silence. Ethan turned slowly. Zira stood there, her shadow tall and sharp against the glow of the collapsing star outside. Her eyes blazed brighter than the screen itself. "You touched the forbidden," she said, her voice like thunder rolling through the room. Ethan rose to his feet, his pulse racing. "I had to know. You wouldn't tell me." Her claws flexed, scraping against the wall. "Because you are not meant to know. This is not your world, not your law." Ethan held his ground. "But it's my life now, and it's my crew's. If I don't understand you, we all die. So tell me, what does this bond mean?" Her silence was heavy. The hum of the ship seemed to fade, leaving only the fire of the star outside and the sound of their breathing. Finally, she stepped closer, her voice low and sharp. "It means you are mine. And because you spoke of another, it means you are broken. To my people, you are already dead." The words cut deeper than any weapon. Ethan's chest tightened. He wanted to argue, wanted to explain. But then the ship jolted violently, throwing them both to the floor. Alarms screamed. A new message flashed on the screen. "Incoming vessel detected." Ethan scrambled to his feet, his eyes widening as the radar filled with shapes. Dozens of ships, fast and sharp, racing toward them. Raiders. The crew rushed in, shouting in panic. Zira's eyes never left Ethan, even as the alarms roared. "Choose," she said, her voice almost a growl. "Fight beside me as bonded or die." As nothing. Ethan looked at her, then at the swarm of ships closing in. His mind spun. He had wanted answers. Now he had them. And they might kill him faster than the raiders. The lights flickered again. The enemy ships drew closer, weapons glowing red. The control room filled with fear, with silence, with fire. And Ethan knew, whatever choice he made now would mark him forever. The enemy ships swarmed closer, like a storm of metal insects. Their red lights blinked across the darkness, weapons locked and ready. The alarms inside the control room screamed, but the sound that chilled Ethan the most was not the warning siren. It was silence. Silence from the engines. He looked at the screen in horror. Engines offline. "How?" one of the crew shouted. "We just repaired them." Ethan's stomach sank. The engines weren't damaged by the star, they had been cut deliberately. Sabotage. The crew scattered in panic, rushing to different stations trying to reroute power. The ship trembled as if it already feared what was coming. Ethan forced himself to focus, but his mind kept spinning back to one thought. Who did this? He turned sharply toward Zira. Her glowing eyes were steady, unreadable. Did she do it? Did she cripple their ship out of rage or to prove her bond was more powerful than his defiance? "Was it you?" Ethan demanded, his voice sharp. The crew froze. No one dared speak. Shira tilted her head slowly, her claws resting against the console. "You accuse me while the enemy closes in?" Bold. Stupid, but bold. Before Ethan could respond, the ship lurched violently. A blast from the Raiders' cannon slammed against the shields. Numbers dropped. 27%, 19%, 12%. The hull groaned. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Ethan grabbed the edge of the console, steadying himself. His heart thundered. If the engines stay down, we're dead in minutes. He rushed to the engineering panel, pulling open the access wires. The display showed a direct override. Someone had locked the engines with a security code. It wasn't just sabotage. It was betrayal from inside the crew. Someone shut us down on purpose, Ethan growled. The crew exchanged nervous glances. Fear spread like fire. If one of them had betrayed the ship, no one was safe. Another blast shook them. The shields dropped to 8%. We can't take another hit, someone cried. Ethan's hands worked furiously trying to bypass the lock. Sweat ran down his face, the sparks burning his arms. He felt Zira's eyes on him again. Watching, judging, waiting. Finally he snapped. If it wasn't you, then help. Me. Or are you just going to watch us die? For a long, tense moment she didn't move. Then slowly she stepped forward. Her claws tapped against the console. Her voice was calm but heavy with meaning. You do not trust me, but you cannot win without me. Her hand hovered over the lock interface. Ethan hesitated. If she touched it, she could unlock the engines or seal them forever. Another blast struck. The shields dropped to 3%. Warning lights flared red. Shield collapse imminent. There was no time to think. Do it! Ethan shouted. Zira's claws flashed across the console. Symbols filled the screen. Strange alien runes, glowing with a power Ethan didn't understand. The lock flickered, then vanished. The engines roared to life. The deck shook as the ship pulled forward, breaking free of the Raiders' trap. The crew cheered in relief. Ethan let out a long breath, his chest aching. For a moment, hope returned. But then, the weapons failed. Every gun turret, every defense system went dark. On the display, one message flashed: weapon systems disabled, external command detected. Ethan's blood ran cold, another layer of sabotage. The Raiders didn't chase immediately. Instead, they formed a circle around the ship, like predators toying with prey. Their weapons glowed, ready to strike whenever they wished. Ethan's mind raced. Someone wasn't just trying to kill them. They wanted the ship alive, captured. He turned to the crew, his eyes hard. One of you did this. One of you wants us taken. The silence that followed was worse than any alarm. Faces shifted, eyes darted. Suspicion spread like poison. Then a loud pop echoed through the control room. Smoke filled the air. One of the junior officers had collapsed at their station. Ethan rushed over, checking their pulse. Alive, but unconscious. On the console beside them, a small device blinked red. A sabotage module. Ethan ripped it out and slammed it on the floor. His heart pounded as the truth hit him. The Raiders weren't working alone. They had help from inside. Shira crouched beside him, her glowing eyes scanning the unconscious officer. Her voice was low, almost a whisper. Not my hand. Not my bond. But someone else has chosen treachery. Ethan stared at her, searching her face. Could he believe her, or was this just another game, another trap hidden in her culture's twisted rules? Before he could answer, the ship jolted again. A Raider broadcast crackled over the comms. The voice was sharp, alien, and cruel. Lower your shields. Hand over. The human. Do this, and the rest of you may live. Every eye in the control room turned to Ethan. The weight of silence crushed him. He felt Zira's gaze like fire against his skin. He knew what the crew was thinking. One life for all, one sacrifice to survive. But Ethan also knew, if he surrendered, they'd all be dead anyway. Raiders never kept promises. His fists clenched. His voice was steady, though his heart raced. They want me. That means I'm the only one who can stop them. Zira stepped closer, her voice sharp. Or the only one who will doom us all. Outside, the Raiders charged their weapons. The glow lit the dark like a red sunrise. The crew waited, holding their breath. Ethan stared at the screen, Then at Zira, he had seconds to decide, and whatever he chose, fight, flee, or surrender, would mark the fate of them all. The control room shook as the raider ships tightened their circle. Their weapons glowed brighter, aimed directly at the wounded vessel. Inside, the crew held their breath, waiting for Ethan's decision. The ultimatum still echoed through the comms. Hand over the human, and the rest of you may live. Ethan stood at the center of the room, his chest heavy with the weight of every gaze. He could almost feel the unspoken thoughts pressing in. Give him up. One life for many. His hands curled into fists. He wanted to shout, wanted to remind them that raiders never spared survivors. But the fear in their faces silenced him. Fear was a powerful liar. Shira stepped forward, her glowing eyes fixed on him. They see you as weakness, she said. A human. Easy prey. If you go to them, they may believe we are stronger without you. Her voice carried no mercy. To her, this was logic, not cruelty. Ethan's jaw tightened. And if I go, we all die. Raiders don't make deals, they make graves. Another blast hit the shields. Numbers dropped. 3%. 2%. Sparks rained from the ceiling. The air tasted of smoke and burning metal. The captain's voice cracked over the intercom. Decide, Ethan. We cannot take another hit. The crew's fear turned into whispers. Some begged for his sacrifice, others for resistance. The room split apart, trust tearing like thin paper. Ethan closed his eyes for one breath. When he opened them, his choice was clear. We fight together, or we die together. The words hung heavy in the air. Some faces showed relief, others anger, but there was no time to argue. The raiders fired again, the shields collapsed, the ship rocked violently, alarms screaming. Red lights painted the control room. The next strike would tear through the hull. Weapons. Still offline, a crewman shouted. Ethan's mind raced. Think. There has to be another way. He looked at the navigation display. The collapsing star burned in the distance, its fiery wound spilling waves of energy. Dangerous, yes, but also powerful. He pointed. We draw them into the star's gravity. If we time it right, the star's pull will crush them. Gasps filled the room. That's suicide, someone shouted. Better suicide than surrender, Ethan snapped. The crew looked to Zira. Even in this moment, her voice carried weight greater than his. If she said no, the plan was dead. Her glowing eyes narrowed as she studied the fiery wound of the star. For a long moment, silence hung between them. Then she spoke. Your plan is madness. But madness may be the only path left. Ethan rushed back to the console. Then help me. You know the controls better than anyone. Zira moved beside him. Their hands worked in tense harmony, rerouting what little power remained. The engines groaned, fighting against their wounds. But they answered. Slowly, the ship turned toward the burning star. The raiders fired again. Explosions rocked the hull, but this time Ethan felt no fear. They were moving. They had a chance. The enemy ships followed, circling tighter, ready to deliver the final blow. Closer, Ethan said through gritted teeth. Just a little closer. The star's pull began to take hold. The ship shook violently as its gravity clawed at them. Warning messages flooded the screens. Structural stress critical. Crew clung to their stations, terror in their eyes, but the raiders didn't see the trap. They pushed forward, hungry for the kill. Then the star released a massive flare. A wave of fire erupted outward, bright enough to blind. It swallowed the nearest raider ship whole. Metal screamed as it was torn apart. The crew gasped. For the first time, the hunters had become prey. Hold steady, Ethan shouted. His hands flew across the console, guiding their wounded ship through the deadly wave. One by one, the raiders were caught. Some tried to flee, but the star's gravity dragged them back. Ships cracked, burned, and vanished into the fiery wound. Cheers filled the control room. Hope surged like fresh air. They had turned the impossible into survival. But victory came, at a cost. The ship itself was barely holding together. Alarms blared, engine overload, hull integrity 22%. Oxygen leak detected. Ethan fell back against the console, gasping for breath. His vision blurred from exhaustion. But before relief could settle, a cold realization struck him. Not all the raiders were gone. One larger vessel had held back, watching, from the shadows. It was still there, unharmed, and it was moving closer. The comms crackled again, the same cruel voice as before. You fight like fools. Brave, but fools. Now, human, we take you ourselves. The crew's cheers died instantly. Fear returned, heavier than before. Shira stepped close to Ethan, her claws brushing the edge of the console. Her voice was low, almost a whisper. We cannot survive another battle, you know this. Ethan turned to her, his chest tight. Then what do you suggest? Her glowing eyes locked on his. Give me your trust. Fully. No more questions. No, more resistance. Only then can I save you. The words sent a chill through him. Trust her. Completely. After everything. The larger raider ship loomed on the screen, weapons glowing, ready to fire. The crew waited, silent, staring at him. Ethan's choice had come again, not between fight or surrender, but between trust and death. The control room fell into a heavy silence. The smaller raider fleet had been consumed by the collapsing star, but the largest enemy vessel now loomed ahead, its massive hull glowing, with weapon ports like a predator's teeth. Every screen flickered red, engines failing, weapons offline, hull breach in progress. The crew looked broken, their courage burned away by exhaustion. Only Ethan stood firm, though his body trembled from fatigue. His eyes locked on the enemy ship. Then Zira's voice cut through the silence like a blade. Trust me, completely. Do this, and I can save us. Ethan turned toward her. Her glowing eyes were steady, but beneath them burned something he had not seen before. Fear. Not fear of death, but fear of what she was about to ask. What do you mean? Ethan demanded. Zira's claws tapped against her chest just above her heart. Among my people there is a bond beyond command, beyond loyalty. It is forbidden with outsiders. But if you accept it, my strength will be yours, and yours, mine. Ethan's chest tightened. He remembered the archives he had read in secret. Cross-species bonds are irreversible, punishable by exile or death. He swallowed hard. And if I refuse? Her voice dropped lower, sharp and final. Then we die when their weapons fire. The ship shook violently as the raider vessel fired a warning shot, grazing the shields. Sparks rained from the ceiling. The crew cried out, some ducking beneath their consoles. Ethan felt time running out, his pulse hammering in his ears. His mind screamed against the choice. Bind himself to an alien law he barely understood or let everyone perish. He took a step forward. What happens if I accept? Zira's glowing eyes softened, but only slightly. Then your life and mine will be one. Pain will be shared. Victory will be shared. If one falls, both fall. That is the bond. Ethan hesitated, his breath shallow. He looked at the terrified faces of the crew, then back at the massive raider ship preparing to strike. There was no other path left. He nodded. Do it. Zira moved closer, her presence towering over him. She pressed her clawed hand against his chest. A sharp pain burned through him, as though fire licked into his veins. He gasped, his knees nearly buckling. Her eyes blazed brighter, locking on his. Do not resist. Let it take hold. Ethan forced himself to breathe. The fire spread through his chest into his arms, his head. His vision blurred. Then suddenly, he saw not just with his own eyes, but with hers. The control room shifted, sharper, brighter. He could feel the fear of the crew, but also the raw determination of Zira's spirit. Her strength flowed into him, steady and unyielding. At the same time, he felt her flinch. His own exhaustion, his doubts, his pain. She felt them too. The bond was real. Ethan staggered back, clutching his chest. What did you do to me? Zira's voice was calm, but her glowing eyes dimmed slightly as if burdened. I gave you what you asked for. Trust. Now we are one. Before he could respond, the raider ship fired again. This time the blast struck full against their shields. Metal groaned, alarms wailed, shields critical. But Ethan no longer felt powerless. The bond thrummed inside him, a rhythm of strength. His hands moved across the console with speed he didn't know he had. Zira mirrored him, her claws striking keys beside his. Together their actions flowed like one mind, one will. They rerouted the last reserves of power into the engines. The ship lurched forward faster than before, dodging another blast. Gasps filled the control room. Ethan gritted his teeth. I can feel you, guiding me. Zira's eyes flicked to his, glowing faintly. And I feel your fire, your refusal to yield. It is reckless, but it gives me strength. The raider ship turned to pursue, but Ethan and Zira moved in perfect sync. Their wounded vessel twisted through the debris field left behind by the collapsing star. Each asteroid became a shield, each fragment of fire a weapon against their enemy. The crew watched in stunned silence. For the first time, human and alien moved as one, unstoppable, unbroken. But then pain stabbed through Ethan's chest. He stumbled, nearly collapsing. Zira hissed, clutching her own ribs at the same time. Their bond cut both ways. His weakness dragged at her, and her strain burned into him. We can't hold this forever, Ethan gasped. Zira's voice was low, strained. Then we ended quickly. They turned their ship sharply, diving closer to the massive raider vessel. The crew cried out in shock. Are you insane? Someone shouted. Trust us, Ethan said, his voice steady, though blood dripped from his lip. The bond flared inside him, burning brighter. He felt Zira's rage, ancient, deep, unstoppable, and he gave her his defiance, his human stubbornness, to never surrender. Together it forged something new. Their ship accelerated, heading straight for the raider's heart. The enemy vessel's weapons lit up, preparing to destroy them. Ethan's vision blurred, his body weak, but the bond steadied him. He and Zira reached out at the same moment, their hands slamming down on the console. The engines screamed, pouring everything into one final surge. The control room shook, alarms exploding in a chorus of doom. The crew clung to their stations, eyes wide with terror. And then, just as the raider fired, Ethan and Zira's ship vanished into a blinding arc of light. The bond had pushed them into a desperate, untested jump. No coordinates. No safety. Only the unknown. The crew screamed as stars stretched into streaks, the ship tearing through space itself. Pain ripped through Ethan's chest, shared instantly by Zira. Her glowing eyes dimmed, her claws trembling. If we survive this, then our bond is forever. The ship twisted into the void, swallowed whole by the leap, and the raider vessel was left behind, its weapons firing into empty space. The ship tore through the void, streaks of light stretching across the windows as the desperate jump ripped reality apart. Every console screamed with errors. The hull groaned as if it would split in two. Ethan clung to the panel, his vision blurred with pain. The bond burned inside him like molten fire. Every heartbeat felt doubled, his own and Zira's. Every gasp echoed with hers. Then, silence. The ship dropped out of the jump. The windows cleared, revealing a vast emptiness. No stars, no planets. Just a dead, black void, as though the universe itself had forgotten this place. The crew staggered to their feet, dazed and terrified. Where are we? Someone whispered. The navigation system flickered. Unknown. Coordinates. No data available. Shira steadied herself, her claws gripping the console. Her glowing eyes were dim but still fierce. We live. That is enough. Ethan shook his head. We're lost. Engines nearly dead. Shields broken. If the raiders track us, they will. Zira cut in. The bond gave us strength, but it also left a trail. They will follow. The crew's fear thickened. Some slumped in despair, others whispered prayers. They had survived the collapsing star and sabotage, only to find themselves stranded in nowhere. Ethan's chest ached with the bond's weight. He could feel Zira's exhaustion dragging on him, but also her stubborn will keeping him upright. They were both at their limit. Suddenly the comms crackled. A voice filled the control room, cold and sharp. The Raiders. "You cannot run. The human is ours. Your bond will not save you." The screen lit up with their massive vessel, looming, like a shadow across the void. Somehow, impossibly, they had followed. The crew's hope shattered. Some shouted, "We can't fight, we're finished." But Ethan stood tall, his fists clenched. He looked at the crew, then at Zira, then at the enemy ship filling the screen. "No," he said firmly. "We are not finished. Not while we still breathe." Zira's glowing eyes flickered, a spark of surprise in them. "Even now you defy?" Ethan turned to her, his voice steady. "That's what humans do. When the universe says die, we say no." Her eyes locked on his, and for a heartbeat, something passed between them. Not just the bond, but respect. The Raider vessel charged its weapons. Time was almost gone. Ethan moved to the center of the room. "Listen to me. They think I'm weakness. They think we're broken. But we're going to show them what it means to stand together. Human and Cathari. One bond, one will, one fight." The crew stared at him. Some shook their heads in fear, but others slowly began to rise. The fire in his voice reached them. Shira stepped beside him, towering and fierce. Her claws tapped the deck. "You heard him. We fight. With our last breath, we fight." The crew roared, not loud, not strong, but enough to break despair. Ethan and Zira moved to the console, their hands side by side. The bond flared brighter than before, pain and strength tangled as one. The plan was reckless, impossible. But it was all they had. They rerouted the final power reserves into a single charge. Every scrap of energy from engines, life support, and weapons. The ship itself would become the weapon. The enemy broadcast sneered. "You dare resist? You will burn." Ethan's voice thundered back. "No, you will." The ship surged forward, engines screaming as they poured everything into one desperate strike. The crew held on as the vessel shook violently, its hull tearing at the seams. The Raider fired. Blasts ripped across the void, striking them, but the bond held them steady. Ethan felt Zira's strength burning in his chest, guiding his hands. She felt his defiance fueling her claws, refusing to let go. Together, they drove their broken ship straight into the Raiders' line of fire. The collision wasn't physical, it was energy. At the last moment, they released the power charge, a blinding surge that turned their failing ship into a storm of light. The void exploded. The Raider vessel shuddered under the blast. Its weapons flickered, shields collapsing in bursts of fire. The massive hull cracked, flames spilling from its core. The crew gasped as the enemy ship split apart, consumed by the explosion. Silence followed. The void was empty once more. Ethan slumped against the console, his vision fading. The bond's fire dimmed, leaving only exhaustion. He felt Zira trembling beside him. "Did we win?" he whispered. Her glowing eyes flickered weakly. "We live. That is victory enough." The crew erupted in cheers, some weeping, some laughing. Against all odds, they had survived. But Ethan knew it was not just survival. Something greater had happened. Something the Raiders, and perhaps even the galaxy, would never forget. He turned to Zira, his voice soft but steady. "Then let them come. Let them see. Human and Cathari, together, we are stronger than their laws, stronger than their fear." For the first time, Zira's fierce expression softened. A faint smile, strange and sharp, touched her face. Perhaps defiance is not only human after all. The crew stood behind them, united. Their ship was broken, lost in unknown space, but their will burned brighter than the stars. And in that moment, Ethan knew this was only the beginning. The bond was forbidden. The path ahead was uncertain. But together, they had defied death itself. And together, they would defy whatever came next.